Good evening, everybody. All you folks over on Rumble and Twitter, everybody just hanging out, having a wonderful night tonight. I am so tired, but that's my fault. Not to worry. I will still try to do the best I got over here. Good to see you, Rabbit, Suzanne, sweetie. Good to see you, doll. Yeah, well, been a long day. I was a little bit late I was on MG Law last night, so that was not what I was expecting, but it was good. Hey, how's it going, Fast Group? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Yeah, I was there for a little bit, and I think they got about halfway through it, and yeah, he had to shut down his stream because it was starting to get a little late and head out. He has the children he got to take care of, so it was a good time. And of course, my show with Caitlin last night was wonderful. Our special guest, which was the leader, the founder, the creator of the church, the subgenius. If you haven't seen that one, Caitlin was amazing. Um, you know, just and our guest was wonderful also. He was a very interesting character, and I was so happy to actually have him on my stream and meet with him, and him and his wife, just a wonderful couple, and I thank them for that. It was so if you haven't seen that, go check that out. You can check that out on mine or Caitlin's channel because I I've opened it up where she can dual stream over there if she wants to. It was a good thing. It's a good thing. Um, yeah, we had a nice popping little group last night. On the on the Declaration of Independence, Federalist Papers, and the Constitution. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So, tonight, it is all about the Federalist Papers tonight. Mm, interesting, interesting, and because I do not have a whole lot of time throughout my day to sit down and read something, you know, all the time. Um, I ended up pulling up a little bit of the cliff notes on these, and I've still read through the Federalist Papers, but if there's something that I'm coming to that doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense, the cliff notes really help out. I don't like their analysis of this though, um, because it seems like it's one-sided with whoever's writing this. So I may go back to actually doing a that's a long read. Yes, I may. Yeah, very. I know what you meant to say. That's a very long read. Yes, absolutely. Um, so, but cutting back on the on the on the tails of it was able to come up with what I think is a little bit better format that sort of narrows it down. Um, and of course, because according to these cliff notes I have, they wanders around a bit on rather soggy ground. The disabilities of the American central government under the Articles of Confederation. And this is what he's pretty much trying to hammer through all of the Federalist Papers. Um, this particular one that he's talking about is referring to um, the issue of money. So that's always a pretty treacherous portion of it too. Basically what it boils down to is, you know, whenever you've got a certain amount of funds that's being brought in through different states. Have I read the Anti-Federalist Papers? No, it's probably pretty close to the Anti-Federalist Papers though, because it's pretty much shoots down or attempts to shoot down everything. And I don't know if it's because they're misinterpreting things or they're not getting the same. same thing out of it that I am. Um, could be a combination of both. They could be correct on it. I mean, let's put it this way: their analysis of this is its total want of sanction to its laws. It could not command obedience or punish disobedience. Well, and that's sort of the point for the central government, is not to do either. Um, Second, the principle of assigning to states a quota of money to be paid into the national treasury. States were often in arrears and on occasion refused to pay anything towards carrying out measures of which they disapproved. That's very true. The national government should have the power to raise revenue in its own way. Well, preferably, as Hamilton suggests, by what were virtually sales tax in the form of impost, excises, and general all duties upon articles of consumption. And what he's talking about in this is a consumption tax, um, which, there's argument pro and against having a consumption tax. The point of having a consumption tax would be, for example, if I spend $1 million building a house at a 10% tax on that, you know there goes, that amount of tax goes to the federal government. But that's the only tax that I pay on it, is for what I purchased. Now, if someone is poor and they spend, $2,000 on purchasing a house, they're only going to be charged 10%. So it's pretty fair when it comes to that. If you don't want to pay taxes, you consume less. Consume more, you get taxed a little bit more. Oh, isn't that the basis of the sales tax? Exactly. But here's where I have disagreement with their cliff notes, and it says Hamilton did not note that sales taxes fall harder upon the poor than the rich. How can it fall harder on the poor than the rich if they're not consuming as much? If they're not purchasing brand new buggies and things of that sort? He sort of would calculate in that tax on there. I'll go dead relative. Long ago, dead relative, one who signed the Articles of Confederation was the only one who didn't sign the Declaration Doc. All the others survived the war to sign the D of the I Doc. So, I mean, it makes sense whenever you've got, and these kinds of funds do not have to be so great as to be burdensome, because that 10% would go to the states, and the states would pay, what they've, like, a percentage of whatever they incurred from people, and not the federal government taking taxes. It's just it's a straight up tax, and no extra taxes on top of that. No property taxes, nothing else, just consumption taxes. It also would mean that you're a little bit freer to do with your money as you wish. Currently, we're in a position where we sort of have to spend money where we'd rather not. And then, of course, that's, like I said, that was only two of them. There's many, many more things. When you sign a percentage, it becomes disproportionate. I don't think that's true. How can it become disproportionate? I mean, the rich will always be paying more if they're spending more, but it's still a percentage of consumption, outside of, like, your basic necessities. And also, if you're doing that, you're probably not going to, 10% is a lot, but it probably wouldn't even be that much to be able to handle it. But with our government being so bloated, where they just print the money, changes the game. I mean, all things being created equal, it would be a little bit different. Poor has less to spend, less to consume, and they will also not spend on high-end products. So, of course, the poor is going to have less to spend, but they're also going to watch what they're spending their things on and be more interested in building up their wealth. It gives them an opportunity to do it, because this is the the big debate with it. That's why I'm not going to, argue the fact. I'm moving on. Moving on. The third, government's want of power to regulate commerce, whether interstate or foreign. And that's the federal government. Fourth, the government's inability to raise troops except by requisitioning quotas of men from the states. The whole system of quotas to raise men and money was an imbecility in the Union. Absolutely. Fifth, the fact under the Confederation, each state, large or small, whether quite populous or much less populous, had an equal right, one state, one vote, in the decision making of the central government, created injustice and inequality. It violated the fundamental maximum of Republican government, which requires that the sense of the majority. And that's where it gets, you know, that's where it gets a little bit iffy on that. So each state, large or small, so no matter what the size of the state is, gets one vote, which would, make sense. Whereas currently the way that we have it set up is, if you have a more populous state like California or New York, they tend to get a little bit more votes than a state like Georgia or Montana. Just it's going to be a little bit different. Uh, Six, the crowning deficit. I think they misspelled something. Crowning deficit of the Confederation was its want of judiciary power. There should be one Supreme Court possessing a general superintendence and authorized to declare at the last resort a uniform rule of civil justice. That gets a little sketchy right there. If you're wanting, sounds like a brilliant, almost brilliant, is that universal basic income? Yeah. That's right. Printing money sounds like a brilliant idea. Absolutely. No, not true. Not true. Because someone that has a lot more money, and you're talking about basic needs, yeah, they're going to be spending the same amount on basic needs. It also is one way to hold people down. I mean, sure, we can look at it every single way. I mean, I whenever I was poor, I would spend, and I'm not poor by any means. But when I was poor, I would go for basic necessities before I would go for the new cell phone or the new car. It would curtail my spending. As my income increased, the more money that I would spend on things like newer cars, a house, um, things that, were a little bit more technically, but not really. Good evening, Cool Frog. Good to see you. Not necessarily, not necessarily. I mean, and it's, if you watch in poorer communities, you'll see that, there's people driving around in brand new cars, carrying, expensive jewelry, handbags, their latest and greatest phones. They eat out on a regular basis. Um, and it's one of those where, if you're not wealthy, if you are poor, which I've been, like, really, really dirt poor, where I didn't know where my next meal was coming from for a long period of time, and you watch what you spend your money on. Um, so I mean, there's an argument made both ways. That's all I'm saying. I mean, like I said, I'm not gonna argue this one, because there's a side to both of them. Well, that's because they're subsidized. Why do you think they're subsidized? Subsidized. Yes, because they haven't learned to take care of themselves. I mean, yeah, my family was on food stamps. So, you know, I lived off the government cheese, and you know, I was still taxed on that. You know, there's there's that. Always. One thing sure is death and taxes. Like I said, mean you can argue it, but it's going to be, yeah, miss the keeping up with the Jones spending. That's one of the bigger problems is trying to keep up with the Jones. And there's something to be said about someone that's actually, creating creating wealth. Um, they're still going to be spending if they're putting new equipment into a shop, to build the next wagon wheel. They're still going to be paying that consumption tax. But there's so many tax write-offs. Don't they have tax SSDI in 2023? I don't know. I don't know. Anyhow, six, moving on. Six, the crowning deficit of the, I already said that one. The American Confederate government was one of the most execrable forms of government ever contrived. A system so radically vicious and unsound as to admit not only the amendment, but by an entire change in its leading features and characters. The only way to avoid impending disaster with the swiftest possible ratification of the proposed new Constitution, although he thoroughly disapproved of the Philadelphia document, only accepting it because, along with Washington and others, he thought it was as good as could be expected under the circumstances. So that's basically summing it up, is they were trying to get something that approved by everybody. And it's always going to be difficult to get everybody on the same page as everyone else. It's always going to be difficult to make that happen. There's always going to be, one state that wants to run things their way, another state that wants to run their things their way, and both states want to run the federal government how they want to run the federal government. And this is at the early part. It's much different now. So moving on to the Federalist 22. Another major defect in the existing national government was its lack of power to regulate commerce, both interstate and foreign. There was no field that was more immediately needed. Federal superintendents, the states erected tariff barriers against one another, and in ocean commerce made its own regulations about foreign trading and shipping. So in brief, what they're talking about is there was states that would put tariffs against other states. So you had, the northern states that would put a tariff against clothes that were made, and then you had the southern states that would put a tariff against the cotton that was being sold to the northern states for them to actually make shit out of. And trying to raise money to give to the federal government. And as to the raising of armies, the existing government had only the power to make requisitions upon the states for quotas of men. So they were, got to go. Life is interference. Sorry to see that, Rabbit. I'll see you soon. You take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Federalist Papers were written in the 1700s, 1787, and it was a long period of time that they were actually writing these, over a longer period of time. But as to raising armies, the existing government had only the power to make requisitions upon the states for quotas of men. So, for example, during the Revolution, this led to great inefficiency and gave birth to a competition between the states, which created a kind of auction for men. Okay. Those nearest the area of combat for mere survival raised more troops. Those further removed, they were fewer. They were drawing fewer people. The whole faulty system resulted in the slow and scanty levies of men in the most critical emergencies during the Revolutionary War. Short enlistments at an unparalleled expense, continual fluctuations in the troops, ruinous to their discipline and subjecting the public safety frequently to the perilous crisis of a disbanded army. Yeah, 1789, 1799. It's in the description for that. 1787, 1788. So that's whenever they were written, and they were written under the pseudonym of Publius. 87 to 88. 1777, 1788 is whenever they were published. Now, it was released in a book later on, compiled. So the whole system of quotas and requisitions on states in regard to men and money was, from every view, a system of imbecility in the Union and of inequality and injustice among the members. So there were people that were upset that, if they weren't near the battle, those weren't getting as much troops from the heart of those battles. It was, trying to draw up a larger army, or somewhat of an army, to go against the British. So the inequality was shown very glaringly in the fact that all states had an equal voice in making the decisions under the Confederation. This principle gave to Rhode Island an equal weight in the scale of power with Massachusetts or Connecticut or New York, and to Delaware an equal voice in the national deliberations with Pennsylvania or Virginia or North Carolina, a 16th part of the Union. About the proportion of Delaware and Rhode Island had several times prevented the Confederation from doing anything at all about important measures. It's violated the fundamental maximum of Republican government, which requires the sense of the majority should prevail. But the crowning deficit in the Confederation was its want of judiciary power. Who was to have the final say in determining what the national law was? There should be one court paramount to the rest, possessing a general superintendence and authorized to settle and declare, in the last resort, a uniform rule of civil justice. Pretty interesting. So, foreign trade. Well, let's see. Go back here. So he's making a lot of strong points about the lack of power in the national government under the Confederation. For one thing, it could not regulate or control either interstate or foreign commerce. States erected high tariff barriers against one another. For example, only hats made in Connecticut could be sold in that state, making Danbury the city hat as it's still known. New York levied duties on firewood brought in from Connecticut and on vegetables from New Jersey. Patrick Henry, once eloquent advocate of free trade, turned provincial in the 1780s, and as a member of the House of Delegates proposed that the Virginia legislature prohibit the importation from other states or foreign nations of any beef, pork, butter, cheese, or distilled liquor, and that heavy duties be imposed to discourage the import of coal, iron, and cordage. The Virginia legislature did not go as far as Henry had proposed, but considered considerably increased duties on beef, strong drink, and other items. These were the items that were coming into the United States. So not from other states, but from other countries. So that's where those increased duties were coming in. Foreign trade presented a different but rather similar problem. To increase its export and import business, the infant republic had great need to negotiate advantageous commercial treaties with European nations. The national government had the right to negotiate such treaties, but the right was largely theoretical. As European diplomats asked, what was the point of negotiating a commercial treaty with the national government so long as the individual states could tax and regulate foreign trade as they pleased? Good to see you, Caitlin. Good to see you. MJ, Melissa Jane. Yes. Hence the commerce of Connecticut. Yeah. So, that's Like I said, nothing's perfect there. Jeez. For South Carolina, levied a general tax of 2.5% on foreign imports, which was much higher rates for certain specified articles. Massachusetts prohibited the export of American goods on British ships. It doubled the tonnage duties on goods imported on other than American ships. New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, North Carolina, Rhode Island, New Hampshire had similar discriminatory laws against foreign shipping and trade. And that can do multiple different things of causing a problem. Say, for example, if North Carolina says, yeah, we're putting a 2.5% tax on anything that's coming in, or a tonnage chat thing, what will happen is they would just say, well, instead of us paying these higher fees, we'll just take and we'll go to Georgia, drop off our goods there, and then let them battle it out because the tariffs aren't going to be high in Georgia. So that can raise problems, especially if you're trying to fund a federal government. The greatest of the Confederation's disabilities was the fact that the Continental Congress did not have the authority to raise any revenue directly for the support of the national government in carrying out its various functions. When Congress passed an appropriation bill for a specific purpose, all it could do was to request the states to contribute their allotted share of the general assessment. As states did not like to tax their own people for general purpose, it is no wonder that many of them were very slow in paying, which is absolutely true. You're wanting to keep your people happy and not have them revolt against you. Start taxing people, and they tend to revolt just a little bit. In 1781, before the Revolution had been won, Congress asked the states for $8 million. Yeah, I read that right. $8 million to meet emergency needs. At the end of 3 years, less than 15 million, or 1,000, I'm sorry, 1,500,000, 1.5 million, damn it, of this assessment had been paid. A number of taxes followed the example of New Jersey, which in 1786 refused to pay a penny towards carrying out congressional decisions they disapproved of. So there's under the Articles of Confederation, the government had duties to act, but no legal authority to enforce it. Exactly. That was the point. Consequently, in want of ready money, the national government was often delinquent in meeting its debts and obligations, which hurt Americans' credit and prestige. There was a growing opinion on both sides of the Atlantic that a young nation, apparently unable to pay its domestic and foreign debts when due, could not long endure. And yeah, Fasker's right. Under the Articles of Confederation, the government had duties to act, but no legal authority to enforce it. It was more as a request. So, you know, that's the federal government was only there as in a certain capacity, to have very limited interference. Um, like we could easily eliminate the federal government and still we would be just fine, because the federal government exists to basically tax us and take as much as they possibly can. So that's where the federal government is at. They write laws to pay themselves and get more taxes from us. And the states could say exactly, which they should go back to. I mean, that's part of the originalist idea of the Constitution is the government is there to basically do nothing. It would make a lot of sense to have that back again, where the federal government stays out of people's business pocketbooks and whatnot. Mm, wonderful, wonderful night. Man, my throat is all dry and sore. I told you this was going to be a a little bit of a shorter evening. Um, my my throat is all just scratchy as anything. I was up late, but I wanted to get through this portion of it. So I'm keeping my Tuesdays very short. It makes it a little bit easier, so I can actually get some rest and do, some other wonderful things. And I'm so glad every single one of you has come by. Hit the like button, thumbs up that bad boy, and enjoy. I mean, if you like what I'm doing, there's always all the other channels, all the other fun stuff going on. But there's uh there's like I said, I changed up my format quite a bit because I thought it would be a little bit easier to get some of the base. I mean, that right there was 2 hours worth of reading that I summed up in 30 minutes. So that's what I'm looking to do with Federalist Papers. I'm having to change my sleep schedule a little bit because I'm in the past, what, 4 days, I've got a total of maybe 24 hours of sleep. So I need to change that up a little bit. I do wish I could join you on some of this. Well, I understand Fast Group. I understand a lot of people would like to join in on this. I've had a few people ask to come on and join in on it. The only problem is I know that a lot of my ideas and my thoughts will just cause arguments, and I don't like getting in arguments. I don't like getting in arguments at all. I mean, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to point out the point for the Federalist Papers, um, and throw in a little bit of my opinion, whether it's right or wrong. And whenever I have, um, if there's an opposing opinion in there, it sort of takes away from what the Federalist Papers were about. I mean, I truly really have tried to limit that down a little bit. Oh, I know. Actually, absolutely, conversation is good, and we can do those conversations. Um, but just know that that's one of the reasons why I try to keep some of that down just a little bit. One, I like to keep. I'm trying to get this particular show just a little bit shortened, and give a nice, good summary, and let the conversation happen within the chat. I think that the chat is pretty good at, and keeping it very interesting. Nobody can argue with that voice. Everybody argues with this voice. It's okay. I don't mind being wrong. I really don't. I know that I want to keep these segments a little bit shorter. In the past, I've had them go for 2.5, 3 hours, and like I said, I've got to adjust my work sleep schedule. Like tomorrow, I've got a lot of work that has to be done, and I've got to get up super early to get it done. So, and my throat is completely shot because I've been talking on the phone all day to various people in the public. I'm I'm just not even up to par. Uh, mm, I do have a guest that, well, co-host, sorry, a co-host that comes on with me, which would be Caitlin, and she can usually keep me in check and slap me around whenever I say stupid stuff, um, which is always good. So we've been doing some streams together and showing the streams over on her channel whenever she's wanting to. So it's always a good thing. Um, and um, there's some other ones that I actually do want to have you on for a fast group. Those will be a little bit later on in the series of this. And I've just like this next month, I've got so much work going on and trying to get it all done. Um, and this week is going to be probably one of my more hectic weeks. Just I've got I've got a lot on my plate today and tomorrow. So, but I do have plans for having Fast Group on for one very specific one. I think you guys will enjoy it. So, everybody, you have a wonderful evening, and you know, keep up, keeping up. Go check out your favorite creators. Give them a thumbs up. Show them some love. You know, smack that like button. And those of you that are watching this on the rewatch, enjoy. It's 38 minutes long. It's a beautiful thing. You can watch it multiple times and then get those watch hours up. Redirect. Oh, I would love to redirect. I don't even know who's streaming tonight. I mean, go check out your favorite content creators. I can look and see who's actually out there. Let's see. Looks like the expert is live on Taco Tuesday. So go check out Taco Tuesday. It looks like it started 19 minutes ago. So run along. Go check that out. Go check it out. Peace, y'all. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks.